ban phase 2, how integral is that Zyra going to be? Because not many teams have let Zyra go all that way through the draft, through
surprising.
ban phase 2. So we'll have to see whether pushing Odoamne onto something like a Shen is enough, or whether it is too big of a mountain for Origen to climb above.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not going to be the most aggressive in lane unless he lands the taunt into the minions, but Maokai can deal with that just fine. We're going to focus so much on the bottom lane. We're going to focus on that mid. We're going to focus on the entire map, I think. And it sounds like everyone's pretty excited in the audience here. We're loading up onto the Rift for game number 1 of the European LCS Spring Split. And don't forget, you guys, online, keep your Twitters handy, because if you think Origen can take number 1, well, go ahead and hop on at OL Esports is the place. Hashtag OG winner of H2K is going to do it. Hashtag H2 what?
H2K win is what you want to hashtag for that one, as we are on the Rift. First best of 3 of the European LCS. First time we're loading up for 2017 here as well. I'm ready. So Origen, because they're trying to find Che to begin this game out. Maybe looking for Nuclear as well.
Oh boy.
Oh,
they're going to spot it.
They've been spotted.
Che knows exactly what's up right now. It was a nice try from Origen, but the cheese has been revealed.
It gives away now information on the top side of the map as well, because Jankos, they know they can go into the top side, get wards down, spot out the early jungle start. I'm not expecting Origen to pull anything particularly tricky, but it's Jankos that maybe wants to do it for himself. He's waiting for somebody to cross through here. Odoamne hasn't skilled yet. In case he just ends up taking taunt from this, catches Wisdom or potentially Nahyun coming into the lane.
They're bringing 3 themselves. This could turn into an ugly level 1 if they want it.
We also saw, hang on, Wisdom.
Nahyun's going to walk right into it. He has to burn his flash. Instant exhaust onto Jankos. They turn their attention to Wisdom, and in comes Febivin. Dark Sphere means the rest of Origen will not want to take that fight, and it ends up being a couple of summoners blown.
Jankos doesn't know he was on a ward there. It was placed around about the time the whole skirmish started happening, so Jankos is denying the blue take from Wisdom to try and get as much as he can from this setting, because Jankos was so far behind that his early clear would have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting start to this game, too, with both junglers being set behind. Odoamne and Satorius moving up towards the top side to take their places. Everything else as expected in the mid and on the bottom. Let's take a look at our summoners, our keystones, I should say, rather. A lot of tankiness on that side of Origen.
No surprise there when you've got the tanky style that Origen want to play, bringing 2 Courage of the Colossus to the game, and then Kha'Zix brings Thunderlords.
Yeah, of course. No, you want to do all the damage. Gone are the days of Strength of the Ages and every jungler taking it.
Yeah, exactly. But as we look on this bottom lane, a lot of people talking about Nuclear and Che, and now Tabs and Hiva, how are they going to match up against each other? As Jankos is very low. If they were in Invade, perhaps...
they're pinging him too.
Yeah, they know he's seemingly quite low. They're expecting him to be there, but shouldn't be too detrimental. I'm expecting Nuclear and Che to be able to hold their own and go even against every bot lane that we've got and win some of the matchups they have against the bottom tier teams. Very easily, very comfortable.
Yeah. On Origen's side, Tabs and Hiva, I mean, you look at this pair on paper, and they're definitely not lacking too much for experience. Hiva having been in the challenger scene for a long, long time. And even if he has the tendency to be one of the more blindly aggressive supports, he still can get results done. Tabs has had a pedigree, but we just haven't seen much out of him lately. And, you know, they kind of have to step up and prove that they still can play. Yeah,
I mean, Tabs, we saw him in Challenger for a while, and honestly was kind of struggling even to maintain a top challenger AD carry status. He had a lot of good games, but you know, when you started seeing players like Hansama come in, that everybody was making a lot of noise about, Tabs seemingly started to get left behind, and we'll see if he gets left behind on this, because he's actually running up all the way towards Jankos now. I think H2K kind of have an inkling it's happening when the whole bot lane disappears. You kind of have to wonder.
Yeah, Wisdom's coming too here. I mean, that was all because of the ward that he placed early on. Jankos knows he's going to get the smite down, so they really can't get much done and just, in fact, lose out a little bit of lane presence here. Wisdom is going to get his Skull of Crab clear on down towards the bottom side, but a lot of jungler focus has been in this lane right now, and it's a curious thing to see if that continues.
A good amount of help from Hiva as well, warding in the lower side jungle, so they knew exactly where Jankos was. They could have predicted it pretty much from his pathing. Anyway, Jankos now, they know where Wisdom is. He will get spotted out on some of this vision here, and Wisdom may be looking to turn, but Che has got him boxed in.
Oh boy, ooh, it avoids the grasping roots. Takes a pot shot on the back half, and they place the ward not quite in the brush, but Wisdom sneaks out with his life. a lot of near misses to start this game off. We're only 4.5 in.
Yeah, we are only 4.5 in. You know, we've seen Nathan already back away from that mid lane, pick himself up a tier of the Goddess as well, which kind of forced Febiven to back away, get himself Lost Chapter, pick up a control ward for some extra vision control. Sartorius, he's on Maokai. This is a comfortable one for him. He's able to teleport back up to top.
Yeah, no problem for Sartorius. There's another player that is coming in and having his LCS start, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as Wisdom is on the gank path. They can't get any CC lockdown, so Nuclear and Che have backed off to safety once again.
Flash for flash in the bot lane. Kiva flashed on Che, which forced him to flash in response, otherwise it would have locked him down.
It's pretty flashy.
So, a little bit more emphasis on the bottom lane than I think H2K would have liked right now, but when you look at it, it's 2 tanks in the top lane. It's Syndra and Ryze in the mid lane, who, until Syndra hits 6, isn't really going to be able to do too much against Ryze, and even then he's Ryze, so kind of survives most things as well. H2K would like to divert attention a little further away from that bot lane for now, though.
Sartorius is going to get the ward on and spot Jankos up towards top side. That's a question we had to ask ourselves quite a lot coming into this week, prepping for it all. Where was H2K going to focus their jungle attention? With Febiven now occupying the mid lane, a role that previous mid laner Ryu had a lot of attention out of him. Would that translate to Odoamne, or would that instead be transferred down towards bottom? So far, it has seemed to be the bot, not by their own choice.
Exactly. This game is very matchup specific as well. Not a lot you can do for Shen Maokai in the top lane for a while.
No, in fact, Shen comes to you.
Well, yeah, Shen can come to you, and he can now as well. Odoamne just hit 6. Important timing from Sartorius. Using his TP into the lane allows Odoamne to use his in response and have Stand United available. This might be the opportunity that H2K over the next minute or so have to really blow this game wide open. If everybody comes down to the bottom lane again, Shen will be able to get there. Maokai won't.
Yeah, level 6, very important when you're dealing with the Shen. And obviously, ultimates are pretty impactful for most champions in the game. Nonetheless, it's a big deal. Sartorius is still sitting on 5, of course, even if he could teleport into the action. You can see the bot lane's backing away down bottom, and Jankos is actually going to go a roaming.
And look at this. This is because Nahun backed away. This is his second recall already from mid lane. Allows Jankos to move into the enemy jungle, clear out a control ward. He sees that Wisdom is now very low, and Jankos, only level 4, does have a disadvantage, but knows that at least for the first portion of that, Febiven would have been able to roam and get there quicker than Nahun will. That level 1 ult is still fairly low range on Ryze, so didn't want to get caught out in a situation where he had to try and save Wisdom.
Nahun definitely having a lot to prove here. This is a guy we've only seen in Korean Challenger, and he didn't manage to win a game, LSPL.
This is interesting. Nuclear and Che coming all the way across from bottom lane, diverting their attention through. Normally you just see them come back down through the lane. The wave is kind of pushing away from them, and Tabs is pushing it back out. So maybe they were looking to see if they could make a play, catch somebody out in the jungle, but nobody was there.
There's been a huge focus on getting early vision in the oddest of places as they
time.
pop over. Oh boy, Tabs and Hiva, they don't see this.
Does he know? Oh, if Hiva goes to ward, this will be so bad.
And
they lock him down.
Caught him, locked him in. Goes Jankos. Hiva is down. First blood for the First Blood King.
Oh, that couldn't have gone much better for H2K. The 3-man blasting plant acrobatics show over the wall into the First Blood. And Jankos continues his moniker of being the First Blood King. This guy truly is unstoppable when you start looking at these early game skirmishes. You can see last season, 40 First Bloods that he participated in. Insane.
Yeah, this guy is something else. And now you can see why they prioritize the Kha'Zix pickup over something like a Lee Sin. Already starting off to an excellent 1-4. Let's take this one more time. Just take it in.
Olympic gold goes to H2K on the trio gymnastics. And Hiva doesn't really get too much in the way of any help from the judges.
I mean, that just feels bad, man. Unfortunately, still didn't have his flash up and available. The exhaust, he knew he was dead. Not much you can do there, so Jankos is able to pick himself up, his first kill of the game. Let's check in how the CS is going, though, because in this bottom lane, it actually has been Tabs outdoing Nuclear in that regard. Can shoot a few more arrows at once. Everything else has been fairly even. I mean, the jungle looked like it was going to be a bit rough of a start for Jankos, but obviously he's made up quite a lot for that. And H2K, they have a slim lead thanks to that First Blood, but it's only about 300 gold, so in 9 minutes, doesn't mean too much.
It's about as good as you're going to get without a significant fight in the bottom side. Just the one catch, really well worked by H2K. a little bit fortunate on their side, knowing that Hiva, after his recall, is going to come out to the river and ward it. I mean, that's not a play that is going to work every time that you 3-man blast plant over the wall. So certainly looks very, very skillful of H2K to pick up, and is a good way of starting this game out for themselves.
They've had tabs on Wisdom, pardon the pun, pretty much consistently, though, throughout this game, because they keep on moving into that jungle when he's occupied elsewhere. And you can see where the vision focus is. Wisdom up on the top side has been placing some wards. The rest of Origen have followed suit. They have that side of the river, but the Dragon side, it's all H2K.
Yeah, Dragon side is H2K. There are a couple of wards still around that will deny H2K from doing anything particularly strong too early on. Interesting as Wisdom heads into the bottom lane.
Oh, the Ash Arrow lands. Nuclear, the flash in. That might have been overkill there, and Wisdom picks up a kill for himself.
And you could see there wouldn't really have been any response from Odo Amne there, because he's right next to Sartorius in the top side. A lot of people will be questioning, why was there no shield, no summoners used? As soon as that arrow hits, Nuclear is dead, dead, dead in that bottom lane. So they save the summoners for another day.
Yeah, Nehun now is going to be in a 1v2 situation. Powers unleashed. Jankos actually bails out. He was feeling the heat of the tower as Nehun melted through the minion wave.
Featherman doesn't have damage yet. Look at his boots. They're Mercury treads as a first buy on Syndra, wanting to survive through some of the damage that Ryze has. Typically, Ryze wants to scale, but he has a fair amount of damage at the same time. Featherman being less about carrying for the team for himself now, being more about setting up fights later. And speaking of setting up fights, gets the knock-up, arrow hits, no response from H2K. Great response in the bottom lane out of Origen.
Yeah, it was well played from them. They did invest 2 flashes to make it happen. I like the one from Wisdom. I don't know if the one from Hiva was 100% necessary, to be completely honest, but it does fit his MO. If there's somebody to kill, he's going in.
He's aggressive. The number of times I've seen him Q-flash people on Alistair, again and again and again, just in the laning phase, and get kills in Challenger is insane. However, it doesn't work so much in the LCS.
Or on
and that's
Karma.
where I want to see Hiva kind of round himself out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Karma as well.
I mean, sometimes there's some habits that just die hard. Now, H2K, they've sent Che and Jankos kind of roaming into this jungle to clear some wards out, place a few of their own. They are unfortunately spotted near the red pit, but Wisdom is nowhere to be found. He's up in top side. He's getting his counter jungle on. And there's just a forest of wards here now towards this bottom side. We could be in for, well, I believe it was called a fiesta in the bot lane.
Yeah, it might end up being a bit of a fiesta. I mean, you can see the evolved claws on Jankos.
Featherman wasn't spotted. Well, now they see Jankos. They know what's up.
Obviously, Q evolution is the one that everybody's been going to first as, you know, pick up on the Kha'Zix.
Yeah, that damage.
Gives you that cooldown on the Q decrease when you hit an isolated target. So you find somebody one-on-one and suddenly they die. Wonder where half their health went.
Just about. Nuclear and Che have been keeping Hiva and Tabs penned up in this bottom side. And even though the dive was sniffed out, still keeping the pressure on. Lost a little bit of farm. Tabs has still kept himself ahead of that. However, gold game is in Origen's favor overall, thanks to the equalizing kill that Wisdom was bringing. Nobody really interested in the Dragon either, and there's no rush. It is only a Cloud Drake. Not quite as critical as something like a Mountain or an Infernal. So we could be in for a bit longer of a laning phase. Nehun, however, is going to have to go on the run. Rune Prison, Featherman unleashes the power. He's down to low health, but he's got both summoners available. Flashes over, followed by Jankos. Party Portal, he can't take it. Featherman claims him.
Claims the kill. It took a little longer because of the lack of damage for now from Featherman, but that kill will do it for him. Will allow him to continue his itemization now towards a little bit more damage, and you can see that just the Kha'Zix, the Syndra, that potential is enough. Ultimate was used by Nuclear, just to try and get Tabs out of the lane.
Yeah, going back to that mid, this is what H2K's comp is built to do. You were saying it yourself in champion selection, they can get the assassinations off, if they can get the pressure in the early game, they can snowball their lead. But this is not a snowball.
Right.
This is a dead even game at 13 minutes. Origen should be happy with this.
Origen, considering their composition, will be very happy with this. When you look at it, they've got a Maokai who needs a little bit of extra time, needs that first item with those boots, has the Ryze who is, you know, working his way towards his core. This is an acceptable position for Origen to be in for themselves. When they look at this game plan, what do we need? This is exactly it. Sure, they'd love to be ahead, but this is not a worry now for Origen.
Yeah, I do like that Wisdom took the more aggressive track and kind of helped equalize a little bit on the gold on bottom. They didn't just sit back, play the passive game. As Che, speaking of sitting back, he can't get too comfortable there. He got fired on, a lot of damage being dealt to him, and still a problem with Zyra is her relative squishiness to a lot of other supports.
But you know what is also good for Zyra? It's when she can come over with a jungler and do Dragon. 2 people, because your plants tank it up for so long, which is something that Origen have to be careful of. With this push now in the bottom lane, you can see Hiva recalled as well. There is this opening now for H2K to go back into the lower jungle. This is the 3rd or 4th time we've seen this. Every time Hiva backs away, H2K go into the jungle, they get vision control, they get wards, and they try and take away as many of the camps as they can.
There's a difference this time, though. Wisdom is actually here. Jankos is going to smite that real quick. He's got the blast plant. He's out. Jankos manages a nice little steal away from Wisdom. Won't have access to his red buff for a little while longer.
It was a close one. Wisdom was there. Hiva's going to check the brush this time. Didn't quite get a read on exactly how far away Jankos went, so didn't want to end up caught out for a second time. That was the first blood in this game, of course. H2K jumping the wall and getting the 3 versus 1 on Hiva.
They're living in this jungle right now. Jankos and Febivin are keeping the pressure on, dragging Nahun out of lane as well, who just wants to sit there and scale and farm up as best he can. Febivin will soon have a little bit more damage. He has the Morellonomicon completed for himself. But you're right, the boots, the survivability has been kind of in the back of his mind, that he doesn't have to be this big carry that we saw when he made a name for himself on 2015's Fnatic.
Exactly, and I think when he looks around, he sees Odoamne, he sees Jankos, Nuclear, Che, he's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to carry every single game. So it might be a slight mindset change. I mean, it's not too uncharacteristic to pick up the Merc Treads as well. We'll either see that or, you know, the Sork boots come through. But H2K right now are in a situation where they're trying to extend any kind of a lead they can over Origen, because Syndra and Kha'Zix, if they don't get rolling, could very well get heavily outdamaged by this Ryze and Ashe later into the game.
They're going to try to get rolling. I mean, you see that hawk shot go, and all of a sudden there's a Kha'Zix there. Oh, of course there's a Kha'Zix there. He's not left the entire time. This is going to be the first tower blood. They finally finished the job, and you could see Wisdom and Nahun were looking to try and stop that, but they were just too late.
And that's important, because Nuclear had been pushing that out again and again, and we mentioned them going into the jungle, putting down vision control, but the true success of pushing the lane out like that is getting that tower first blood on the bottom side. This unlocks a lot of the rest of the map. You'll see Nuclear likely go up towards the top lane or the mid lane right now, and then Odoamne will change around and end up where he's needed on the map. Keep in mind, both teleports available. Neither top laner has used them in an aggressive stance yet, but look at it. Sartorius, first item has been completed. He's getting towards the time where he wants to be involved in a fight.
Has plenty of sustain available for himself as well. Well, Sartorius hasn't had too much trouble farming. Obviously, it's to be expected against something like a Shen who can't really stop you from doing it. But this is why Maokai has just been so heavily picked on 7.1. He just does everything very, very well, even compared to some of his other, top-tier level tanks. But I really like this Shen pickup. If H2K can start utilizing that Stand United, if they can force the issue a little bit more, it's harder to do in a long lane down bottom, but maybe now's the time to try and focus on Nahun and shut him down.
Yeah, if they can shut Nahun out of the game, that would go a long way. The problem is he's at 170 CS at 17 minutes, but here they try.
Yeah, okay, exhaust is on, and Febivin thinks better of it this time. It does seem like they keep thinking they can go, but they pull the trigger a little slow.
I mean, at this point, Ryze, 170 farm, Rod of Ages completed with a Negatron Cloak and Mercury Treads as well. Syndra that started Merc Treads and only has a Morellonomicon is never going to get that kill without a significant amount of help from Jankos and the rest of the team. Now the rest of the team are around. They can't quite land the damage down through the bottom side jungle, so H2K having a little trouble getting a lot of their damage into useful positions.
You can see that they really want to try to pick up this Cloud Drake, a little bit of extra speed to help them get in position a little faster, but OG are wise to this. They know there's nothing else for them to take on the bottom side of the map right now. They move in, they throw the wards down inside the pit, just outside the pit, and it's frustrating to watch for H2K. They can't really get what they need to do done, and they know there's a timer on this game.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, a lot of analysts and coaches will probably look at this and say, Maokai and Ryze, how did you get such a ticking time bomb composition that at one point Maokai and Ryze will 2v5 the entire enemy team as long as somebody sets them up for a fight? Like, this is the kind of composition that we very rarely see the two champions ever get through together. So Origen, from the draft, I was questioning the Zyra, perhaps it's H2K questioning this top and mid lane allowance that gets through that we really should be looking at. Because this Maokai came out late, remember? It was in phase 2 of the picks.
Absolutely. And, I mean, so was the Zyra, but it really was a massive surprise towards the back half of that. And teams are still adjusting to this new pick ban format. Jankos is coming out of there. Ooh, the taunt does not land onto Sartorius, who plays it safe. Meanwhile, Wisdom will be up there in the top and getting a little bit of farm for himself. Che trying to dodge away. The Dragon will do a little bit more damage to him. But Origen are in a place that they really like. And to be honest, to come in with expectations of being one of the last place teams in your group, if not the entire LCS, to be able to hold out like this against one of the best teams from last year is impressive.
And at this point, we've got to look at how the pace of the game is being affected by the neutral objectives available. Cloud Drake as a priority for H2K is fairly low. If this was an Infernal or a Mountain, they would probably have rushed to get that significantly earlier with the pressure they were creating in the bot lane. The fact that it's Cloud Drake means that Drake is just sat there, and Jankos is just trying to farm, and he's trying to out-farm a Rek'Sai who is faster around the map to get from camp to camp. And this Rek'Sai is getting particularly strong as well. You can see Wisdom very heavily farmed right now. A 125 to 78 is a fair disparity. It doesn't actually end up with too much gold, but the Rek'Sai herself is fairly healthy in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big thing for Origen that they haven't been too far set back by a couple of the early plays that H2K were able to pull. And they're running out of options. They really are. The Essence Reaver's complete now on Nuclear, so he has a little bit more to work with in terms of CDR. But, they need to get in the mid lane and start trying to shut down Nahun if they really want to get much done. But they need AD to do it. With all that MR he's been stacking up, it is really hard, as you said, for Febiven to get involved and kill him.
And not only that, like Nahun just walks up to the wave, pushes it out, walks away. It doesn't really matter to him that people are trying to dive him because he'll survive that. Wisdom trades with Jankos.
Yeah, he does. Now Wisdom is going to just barely make it out alive. Powers unleashed on Hiva, and Febiven gets a consolation prize. Now they're on to mid lane, and let's see if they have the minions to do it. It doesn't look like it.
H2K stretching themselves to try and get as much damage down as they can. Jankos will try and heal back up from his Void Spikes on the Rift Scuttler and then take the fruit as well so that he's healthy enough. But that was a hard-worked pick onto Hiva. Hiva opened himself up, and of course Febiven now with a Void Staff on top of it, looking to just smash through. Here comes Jankos from the side.
Chains, and they're bringing Shen to the party. Nahun, this is who they wanted. Odo gets the taunt. Odo finishes the kill. Che tanking towers. Sartorius twisted advance into Nuclear. They want to push him off this tower. Nuclear is not going to live, or is he? Flashing. Sartorius picking up the kill, and Odo trying to tank the line, but he finds himself in between all the remaining members of Origen, and they're firing him down. Chains on. Hiva's there. The rest of the team finishes him. Che and Febiven limping back as Jankos was way out of there. That did not go the way H2K wanted on the back half. It is a 1-for-2 trade against them.
H2K running out of damage before Sartorius really appears, and you can see that Maokai is the difference maker in this. The TP in, now Origen are the ones that, despite having their tower sieged for a little while, are the ones that are taking mid-tower first. This is a real misplay out of H2K to stick around in the mid lane and allow themselves to get TP'd on by Sartorius. Sartorius shows up, deals with everything they needed to.
Just about dead even on the gold right now as they polish off that tower to equalize 22 minutes into this game. And if you're H2K, you got to be thinking, what the hell happened?
I mean, Jankos was expecting to trade with Wisdom and doesn't realize that Wisdom is at least even on him here. And at this point, Febiven couldn't get quite around the corner, finally lands the damage down onto Hiva and takes him out. But Hiva joins into the second phase of this fight. This is how long this fight actually ended up going for, because the wave clear from Tabs, from Nahun, is significant enough to force this phase to come too late. H2K push up, Jankos tries the submarine, they land the Chains of Corruption, but Nahun survives for so long. Again, this Rise isn't so weak that you can just dive him, and in comes Sartorius. 2v4 with Wisdom for a very long time in this, but the health bars on H2K are already chunked down. That Sartorius walks into the fight, says, hey, I'm Maokai, you're never going to be able to deal with me. And Origen end up coming out so far ahead from that play, at least when you look at it in an isolated chamber. They got the tower from mid lane.
Yep, and H2K looking to try and answer on the mid. We'll take a look at the damage that was dealt in the last fight. You can see the Kha'Zix just didn't have an impact, and that was because he was tanking tower. Every time you saw him in the replays trying to go on Wisdom again, they just weren't able to get involved after that initial delivery of Odoamne.
The same could be said for Nathan. 0 damage in that fight.
Well, he died really early, to be fair.
He was the one that got dived initially on that play. It was Hiva died first into Nathan in the second phase. So if that Ryze is able to get damage off, we've seen it start to be significant already. So if that fight happens again and Nathan is able to get anything off, it's a little worrying for H2K.
I think it's fair to say it's a lot worrying at this point. 24 minutes into this game, and we talked about the ticking timer, and you have to think on Origen's side, they have so much power, and they have been playing pretty impressively together. Few mistakes here and there. Hiva going a little aggressive. Okay, that's what he does, we know. Wisdom has been playing it just fine. He's been escaping with his life when it's come down to it. He's picked back up the early farm game. Sartorius has done exactly what he needed to. I mean, this does not quite look like the crew of B-tier players that they've been billed as.
For now, yeah, that's fair to say. They're hanging with H2K fairly well in this part of the game. I think H2K right now, their comp is hindering themselves a little bit. They should, in their minds, oh, Che.
Oh boy, okay, so Che's got the shields on. Nahun's gonna have to run out of there. Wisdom is gonna try to finish, but the chains were on him. Origen got a little hyphy, and H2K punished there.
Well, you had to curse it, Pyra. Speaking about Origen not making mistakes,
time, right?
H2K, they were on the top side of the map, and from what looked like a bad situation, Sartorius, with a little bit of an error that we've seen time and time again from Challenger players, bot side, staying there with no TP. This Baron, Jankos is low, he got it.
Oh, he's going to be secured. Okay, there was no smite fight possibility, but they're blinking health bars. Still, H2K sensed a moment of weakness to be able to collapse on and therefore grab themselves a Baron. That's a big swing in their favor and a big mistake out of Origen that, you know, moves the gold 3K in H2K's direction.
It's a two-part mistake. Sartorius should not be showing bot side with no teleport when you know he TP'd and it's on cooldown. And at the same time, Origen shouldn't be pushing forward with Wisdom on the top side of the map when Sartorius is bot side with no TP. Like, that is a fairly easy mistake that a lot of teams will make, and a team like H2K seemingly will punish it time and time again.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something to be said for, you know, teams that have a little bit of anti-momentum when they get a little bit ahead, when they get a lot ahead and they think, it's okay, we're in the lead right now, we're cruising to a victory. You lose your head sometimes, and that's just not the way to play a game. So unfortunately, for OG, H2K were able to punish that in a big, big way, and now they're getting themselves a 1-3-1 on. Well, more of a 4-1 because the rest of H2K have come up top side. Hawkshot's going to spot Jankos and Che, but this tower is going to be polished off real soon as Nuclear is hurting the Baron and powered minions into it.
Odo's pushing bot side out as well, holding Sartorius down there. And H2K, from what looked like a rough position from them, Origen were in a good spot. Now H2K have turned the entire game around. This is the biggest difference between the teams we've seen all game long, and this Baron is going to crack open the Origen outer towers at least.
Yep, this will be number 4 for them, and you can still see Odoamne trying to peck away at the one in the bottom lane, so there really isn't a whole lot left here. Origen still trying to defend now. The big question for H2K is this lead that they built themselves now going to be enough for them to close it out?
It needs to be more. They need more from this Baron buff. They need a really large advantage for themselves to offset the fact that Maokai and Ryze, oh wow, Hiva.
Yep, they go right for him. They know it's the easiest target, and Jankos unfortunately taking tower shots, dodging away the Ash Arrow, but Wisdom shuts him down with a flash on Burrow. And now Che and Nuclear and Febivent trying to make the most of this, finishing off the tower, unleashing the power, and they got the chains on today. Can they get him here? He's just able to flash away into tower range. Wisdom body blocking everything they can, but this is going to be an inhibitor turret here. Tabs trying to keep them off it. Sartorius got a twisted advance in, but they just keep pushing for the tower. It doesn't even matter. Sartorius might not die, but they can't defend, so another tower taken. H2K swings it 6-1 now.
And H2K in the second phase of that fight did not care about Sartorius and Tabs alone. They take down that tower. Had Nakin been there, it would have been a different story, but this was the start. Che over the wall, catches out Hiva. Again, that's the kind of position you have to be careful of around Azira. She will use the roots over the wall. Tabs doesn't quite hit the arrow, but it didn't really matter as Jankos fell anyway. And in phase 2, Nakin was caught out by Nuclear's ult, chipped down, forced back to the base, and the tower died before he could realm warp his way back into the fight.
Yeah, looked like Sartorius was able to stop Odoamne from channeling his Stand United 100% though, and that allowed them to shut down Jankos. So they got a little bit back for it. Hiva, oh boy. Okay, gotta be careful there. Odoamne, Nahun both here. The flash taunt lands at the last possible second. And even with the shields, They were nearly polished off. Clutch Realm Warp out of Nahun.
Yeah, gone from that skirmish, but gone is the ultimate from Nahun that would take Sartorius and Rise into the back lane, the back side of the fight at least. We've seen it happen a couple of times. Febiven knows that somebody's around as Wisdom was in the bush. So this again is H2K trying to force them back. Odoamne will have his ultimate available soon. His teleport is up as well. And a second Dragon of the game has been started by H2K. It's a decent lead for themselves right now after the Baron buff has expired. It's not enough to say this game is done and dusted. This Rise, this Maokai combination with the Rek'Sai and the engaged potential coming from Origen still has a lot of potency as we head later and later into this game.
But talking about potency, we really have to look to Febiven now because it looked like he was going to take a much more supporting role in this game. Well, I mean, he's sitting himself at a pretty 3 items with 3-0-2 on the board, so this is already starting to look a lot better for the H2K mid laner.
Oh, it's looking better, especially considering the... oh, hang on, Nuclear goes in.
Ooh, that's a swing and a miss, but Jankos comes in with a submarine. They've invested heavily to take down Tabs. They get him, but there's no minions here to push. There may be a timing window here that Origen can push with, but H2K are shoving their weight around.
Yeah, Origen are actually pinging mid tower, trying to trade mid-inner in exchange, as Nahun will be able to clear this wave fairly quickly.
They haven't backed yet. I mean, it's only Jankos that's gone back. Now, can he defend here?
H2K will be able to push the inhibitor tower way faster if Origen don't react in that mid lane.
Oh, man.
They're still late to this. Odo can tank this up for a while.
This was a big mistake. Origen got cold feet at the last moment, and now they lose not only 1, but 2 towers here. Wisdom getting taunted, getting knocked back. The big Zyra ultimate, the big one out of Febiven. Wisdom inches away right now from death.
Here comes
and there's
Nahun.
an open Nexus or inhibitor, I should say. Nahun coming in, but they got the jump on him. They've taken him down. Odoamne with the finisher. Nuclear, he should fall here, but Sartorius might just trade his life. The Guardian Angel is popped, and he's gonna go down a second time. Wisdom, Hiva, Tabs trying to get involved, but they just can't do a thing. Jankos hopping over, finding Wisdom, gone in Viz, and they're right back on to the inhibitor, and there's an open one in mid.
A very precarious situation out of H2K in that bot side. As Rise was coming down, they had to turn on him, and turn on him they did. Stun him down from Febiven, clean out the rest of his health bar, and Nahun could not survive. And that has really been the story of this game. At these pivotal moments, H2K have found Nahun and taken him out of fights before he's been able to wreck the H2K backline.
Let's take a look at how it all began. Again, we knew Nahun was on the way, but it was just too late.
It's a matter of time here. You just see him realm walk down into the lower side of the jungle, and H2K, look at how low their health bars are. They force out early heals, everything to try and keep Nahun down. The stun lands, they have the control ward to see him coming, and everything connected out of H2K that they needed it to on Rise. Otherwise, that was a real tough spot to get themselves out of. They take out Maokai to finish it off after the Guardian Angel, and now H2K are in a dominant position.
Yeah, Jankos himself is finding a lot of solace in the fact that he is just nice and fed this time around, has a bit more survivability, the Maw and Malmortius, he has the Edge of Night for himself. The assassination potential has turned into full-on blow teams up potential for this entire squad. This is looking really good if H2K can keep the pressure on.
And in the last 32 minutes of gameplay, we've talked about Febiven low damage early, Rise would have late game damage, everything should be all right for Origen if they get to this stage. Well, Febiven has done over 20,000 damage, Nahun has barely done 6,000 damage in 32 minutes of play as Rise.
Oh no.
Typically, Rise starts putting out monster numbers.
Yeah, well, it's also going to be Kha'Zix putting out monster numbers right now as he does get stopped up for just a second. Ash Arrow goes, but they've caught Nahun once again. Power's unleashed on him. They can't get the stun out. Origen might just be able to get back, but look at the bottom. Odoamne is pushing on Nexus turrets.
Not only that, they force the Rise out of the fight as well and turn for the Baron. Odoamne, yes, he's creating presence, but Nahun again is not getting damage out in any of these fights. He is unable to stay alive long enough to turn the damage back around.
Yeah. Big difference between these two mid laners, and a lot of experience on Febiven's side definitely coming to play for him as H2K secure themselves another Baron as we hit 33 minutes into this game. It is a 9,000 gold edge, 8 towers to 2. Origen are bleeding out.
They really are. They need a significant hold here with 2 inhibitors down. They need one good fight where Nathan doesn't die, but now he's got no flash pyro. He cannot get away the next time that happens. He hasn't got anything to get himself out of a tricky situation. The Seraph's Embrace is on cooldown. No further defensive activatable items for the Rise. He is alone, basically, unless his team are completely with him throughout the fight. Nathan has it all on his shoulders.
They're going to need the perfect engage, or rather the perfect counter engage here to try and make something happen, but Jankos is already pushing on Wisdom. If they get caught out and lose a member, it's going to be nigh impossible to defend their base here. As you can see, on 3 fronts, H2K is pushing. Baron and powered minions all the way through.
And the items have come out in response as well. QSS for Nuclear, Edge of Night comes out for Jankos. They've tried to cut through the healing with Immortal Reminder. They've got a second Executioner's Calling as well. Everything is trying to slow down the regenerative effects that Origen have across the board there. They're trying to cut through the tanks, cut through everything, and end this game as quickly as they can.
Yeah, they just don't care at this point on H2K's side. He finish off that inning. That's fine, we just got it, doesn't matter. And now it's Nexus turrets, super minions, and a desperate pushback. Satorius, poor guy's just been locked up right in front of this turret, desperately trying to save it, and Odo can just dance around him constantly. This is the end game for H2K if they can finish it. However, Che is caught. They get the ultimate out of Odo. Wamne, Wisdom gone in, but it doesn't matter. Nuclear will finish him off. Jankos, he's gonna fall, and Nehun right after him, but it is blow for blow. 2 kills for 2. Odo Wamne not nailing the taunt, but they still got Hiva in the end. Nuclear finishes the job, and it's all on Tabs and Satorius to hold back this push.
Yeah, they cannot hold it back. Tabs left alive. Satorius came back to try and defend him, and Origen reached a little too far trying to kill Che in that exchange, and H2K kill the Nexus.
Game over at 35 minutes in. H2K finish the job.
Game 1 of the 2017 Spring Split for EU done, and it's H2K off to a slow start, but it's a victory at the end.
Indeed it is, and that's what matters, is to get that W on the board, but holy moly, they gave a few heart attacks at the beginning. It looked like Origen could have taken that one.
Some really cool and interesting plays out of H2K and Origen to start this out. The catches from Che were pretty good. Hiva was trying to ward time and time again, couldn't quite stay alive.
Vision game was big in the early game. It was a nice change to see. I think there were a lot more blind engages in the previous seasons, but it really was like a game of chess to watch people just moving around the map in and out of each other's junglers.
And I like the comp that Origen had. I love the Maokai, the Rise
minutes
as well, but the way they were trying to, set up fights, stick around, they just never felt like they were able to get fights done. Apart from the one where Satorius TP'd into in the mid lane, that was probably one of the better executed fights out of Origen, but still, Nathan was dead before that fight ever started. Great setup, no damage.
Yeah, it does seem that like H2K kind of like figured a way around the Rise problem. Just kill him. You can't do anything.
Yeah, just kill the Rise. That always works, I guess.
If you can pull it off. The hard part's always doing it, but H2K managed it time and time again. Now, they've taken game number 1 over Origen in this best of 3. Let's hand it over to the analyst desk to break down how it all happened.
Thank you very much, Pyra. And well, you guys talked a little bit about a slower start. It was a very interesting start, and we want to zoom in on that bottom lane straight from the start, because there were also the place where the most new members on both teams are coming from. And you wanted to take a look at the First Blood, and it wouldn't be an EU LCS first day without a Jankos First Blood, so that was kind of to be expected.
Yeah, and the reason we want to take a look at this is because you can definitely tell that these teams are coming out of the gate quite slowly. The compositions meant that mid and top lane were kind of pretty much locked, so all the action was going around bot lane, and then we kind of see the difference between solo queue and professional play here, especially in Hiva, in how he approaches that brush, because he's going for a standard move right now. Yeah, Jankos will kind of jump into the brush, and you just got to look at Hiva right now, what he sees on his map. Che and Nuclear have been gone for quite a while. Remember, they went kind of to mid lane, back to the bot lane. Then they group with Jankos, and they're going to go over the plant here into the river brush, and that's obviously a brush you always want to ward as a support when you're pushing. Che and Nuclear, they were pushing all the time, but look at Hiva right now. He sees his AD carry pushing pretty far up. He knows 3 members are missing, so there's 3 dots on the minimap that he doesn't know where they are, and he's approaching that brush without a flash. That is a mistake you can't afford to make in professional play, and he knows that. And it's not when he shows this replay he's going to be like, oh yes, oh, that makes so much sense. He already knows that. It's just the fact that you need to consistently apply all these kind of fundamentals and basics on the pro play stage is what's going to make it hard for Origen this season.
And this is why we criticized them in terms of experience coming in. This is one of the things that we felt like that they were lacking, and this is just a clear illustration of what we were sort of expecting from Origen, where like they understand what they should be doing, but then when it comes to actually putting it into practice, they don't always follow.
Yeah. However, we also need to look at the other side, because a little bit later, H2K made similar mistakes in terms of having information but not acting accordingly.
And this is why this game was kind of on a lock, because they were very hesitant. Right here, we see Wisdom shown on a ward from H2K. Guys, we have like the H2K vision on right now, so this is what they see right now. So they see the enemy jungler entering his red squadron. He's going down to Tribush. He's even going to get flashed real quick before this plan phase. So they're completely aware that there's a Rek'Sai there. Yet he's allowed to tunnel in. Yes, it's surprising because he comes out of Fog of War. But then in flash range, Nuclear should always at least try to respect flash damage, especially since the animation for the arrow starts early from tabs. So this was actually outplayable by H2K. And again, hesitation, first game of the year, you know, but these are the ways in. You asked earlier, Shocks, how can Origen win? Well, if they exploit these kind of mistakes from H2K, because they're coming out cold.
And we're going to see a little bit later on how we saw more mistakes that could be exploited. And I feel like this is just teams getting back on the stage, getting back used to what it is to play in pro play. We talked about the fact that H2K did take a little bit longer before they actually started scrimming. And I think that as time goes on, as this series goes on, we should see slightly finer play. But we've demonstrated that both teams are a little rough around the edges very early on into the game. But things do get better for the side of H2K as we transition into this next big mid fight that happened at around the 20 minutes.
Not entirely though, because they don't come out unscathed. We're going to take a look at this. They decide, as you said, the game comes kind of on lockdown, and H2K try and make a move mid, but push a little bit too far.
Yeah, they do just a bit. Just before this play, it did end up that Karma goes down as a result of getting caught out of position. And the thing about this play is that we had a bit of a stalemate before this point. It was about 20 minutes, not very much was happened. The bot lane turret had already gone down, and basically H2K wanted to wait for Baron to come up before they could look to try and contest vision around him. They were looking to try and find a pick. They found it onto Hiva, they pressured down onto the mid lane turret, and then they just used the fact that they had the Shen, the Kha'Zix flank to set up that dive. But unfortunately, it was just ever so slight miscommunication errors where you had the backline still being collapsed upon by the Maokai, and it was just a bit of back and forth that H2K didn't properly execute the dive.
Yeah, and this game was also a good example of where it seems like really close for a while, and even the casters talking about like if Origen scale, they're fine. But one thing we have to note though is the concept of lane priority. Syndra always kind of has the push on Rise. Their bottom lane was getting comfortable, having a little bit more pressure. Jankos, the more experienced jungler, was always stepping into Wisdom's jungle, leaving a ward here and there, revealing information. Eventually they take down the mid lane turret. Then they switch to the top side of the map, and yes, nothing happened until 20 minutes because there was nothing to kind of pivot around. The second that Baron spawns, we see again Hiva trying to get some vision in there, but there's no backup. When he looks left and right, his lanes are pushed in, which keeps him in the back of his own jungle, and that's when Origen starts struggling again, and they keep making a mistake. And I think we have a final 4 free play now that shows it again, where Origen, they're crumbling under this pressure. Nobody is doing anything really wrong. Like, Sartorius is bot, he should be there, even though he doesn't have teleport. If he's not bottom right now, he's going to get pushed in by Shen, and Odoamne will leverage that advantage. But at the same time, Origen is being greedy. They saw Zyra clear ward. They're like, okay, guys, let's kill the support. But then they forget, honestly, that
Mid is being pushed in.
Yeah.
Like you don't have any vision on the jungler because of all the pressure that's being exerted. Like,
you know jungler's not there. You know the enemy has a Shen ultimate that he can use. You know your Maokai doesn't have teleport. Right in those moments, you're playing kind of sustain mode.
Yeah.
So your demeanor should be passive.
Yeah.
But they're playing aggressive on top side while trying to sustain on bot side, and that just doesn't work. So we need to see Origen fix that, become more of a unit. But it's very hard to do that on the pro stage.
and this transitioned into a Baron, which effectively sealed the game for H2K. And the way in which they closed it out was very clean. And I think this is more of what we're likely to see from H2K.
Definitely is from H2K, and we have to see if OG can maybe clean up some of that and get in there more in the early game as well. And they have another game to do it, possibly two. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have game 2 between Origen and H2K. Don't go anywhere.
Looking down and blocked him in goes Jankos. Hiva is down. First blood. They don't want to push him off this tower. Nuclear is not going to live.